Thank you. This next question is about incarceration and criminal justice. Since 1980, the number of Pennsylvanians behind bars has increased by more than 40,000 people, thanks to tough on crime legislation and the war on drugs, which has disproportionately impacted poor people of color. This year, the Department of Corrections budget might top $2 billion for the first time, as the state constructs 2 new prisons near Graterford in Montgomery County. Do you support reducing the state's prison population? If so, what concrete steps would you take to do so? Also, do you support legalizing marijuana? Let's start with Congresswoman Schwarts.
Thank you. I know we missed John Hanger, huh? But let me say this, John was right, that, at least in part, that in fact we are seeing incarceration from simple possession of marijuana, and that is unnecessary. It clogs our criminal justice system, and we should end that. And I support that, and we should also support medical marijuana, not quite the question right now. But I thank John for raising those issues and bringing them to the fore. Let me say this, the cost of incarceration is a major issue for the state. What we need to do is to make sure that we have smart policies, not ones to just sort of trigger incarceration. And what I mean by that, and I was there during Governor Ridge's time when I pushed back on this, and I don't remember Jack's position on this or not, but in fact in making sure that we have to reverse some of what he did, particularly for juveniles. First offenders, nonviolent crimes, we have got to make sure that we reverse that trend of putting them in jail and hurting their opportunities for a lifetime. We have to do more to make sure that people who are ex-offenders, who are leaving incarceration, actually have the skills and ability to get a job. Otherwise, what else do they do but turn to another crime? We know that recidivism is huge in the state. We need to do a much better job of post-incarceration and helping those people succeed. So we need to punish those who need to be punished. We need to keep those in jail who are going to be seriously dangerous to the rest of us. But we've got to be a lot smarter about this and a lot fairer and a lot less biased.
Thank you. Auditor General.
40% of those incarcerated in state prisons today are nonviolent offenders, the majority of which are there for drug offenses. Do we need to decriminalize the use of drugs and not put people in state prisons? You're darn right we do. But there's a way to address it. And I'm not going to sit here and say these are not serious offenses if you're selling heroin and cocaine. And believe me, it's going on everywhere in Pennsylvania. It's a disease. And it's touched every family, including mine. And we need to get a handle on it. But it's not putting people in with hard criminals who are selling marijuana. It's really putting them on probation and parole and giving them an ankle bracelet and making them attend proper sessions to address their problem. So yes, we need to decriminalize many of these nonviolent offenses and get people out of prison. The cost of incarceration is $35,000 a year. An ankle bracelet is $3,000 a year. What makes more sense and what's better for the individual? I'm for the legalization of marijuana for medical purposes only, with very tight controls and it being properly taxed. Marijuana is an entry-level drug. And believe me, when the drug problem in our Commonwealth today is rampant, and we need to do more to address it.
Thank you. Treasurer McCord.
Well, first, we need to be very skeptical about the prison industrial complex and the school-to-prison pipeline and how it, in particular, is destroying minority communities. One of the great points that John would make, it's clear we miss him, is that you're 5 times more likely to be sentenced if you're African-American on a marijuana offense versus a white person for the same usage rates. I clearly would want to attack that prison industrial complex. I also am proud that I think I could attract some of the votes from what I ribbingly call the Dwight Eisenhower wing of the Democratic Party. Dwight Eisenhower was pro-integration. He was president of an Ivy League school. He was skeptical of what? The military-industrial complex, and he believed in this woolly-haired liberal idea that there was such a thing as a productive public sector investment. You need to be skeptical about the aggregations of power in the hands of the very rich. That's what's going on when Tom Corbett replaces 154% of the stimulus money to build prisons while cutting education. We will attack that. And I can return at length on marijuana, but the core point is we need to be thoughtful about this. Don't just chase the latest polls. A couple of core points. Patrick Kennedy talks about the danger of sort of normalizing marijuana consumption, as Jack was referring to. On the other hand, if we're going to go there, we need to examine the evidence, and I think you would want to, if you go there, legalize it so you can both regulate it and tax it, create good jobs and revenues to invest in things the public needs.
Thank you. Secretary McGinty.
Thank you. And just to add to some of what Rob was saying, I mean, if we need any more evidence in how toxic that schools to jails continuum has gotten, the situation in northeastern Pennsylvania, the Cash for Kids, where people are making money, ruining the lives of young kids, tells us everything about sentencing can and should be up for thorough reexamination. I think we have to fully look at the issue of mandatory minimums in particular. That is driving this whole cycle that we are talking about here that does nothing resembling good. And I would take that on. Gentleman stopped me on the way in, and he added to the equation pardons. The pardon system is another tool that we have to look at to use to see if we can give a young person their life back. I also am very proud to have supported and stood with Jordan Harris and others who are calling for the second chance legislation. Give young people a second chance, especially when they have shown that they will work hard and do the right thing, and I will stand with them. On marijuana, listen, it's part of that continuum where nonviolent offenses we have to completely re-examine, and I am for the availability of marijuana for medical necessity. I've not been for, and I'm not for the full recreational legalization of marijuana. Thanks.
All right, thank you. A quick follow-up, which begins with a plug of the current city paper, which is out there, in which I have a story describing the decline of commutations of life sentences in Pennsylvania. Governor Shapp in the 1970s commuted hundreds of life sentences. That has declined precipitously in recent years. Governor Corbett has so far commuted 0. Would you take seriously your powers of commutation if elected governor? Let's start with Auditor General Wagner.
Well, it would depend on the offense.
Sure.
And that's a very difficult question to generalize in terms of my opinion. Obviously, I would not agree with it with a serial killer, premeditated murder, offenses such as that. So each and every one, I would be open-minded to it, and each and every case would be its own individual case.
Thank you. Treasurer?
Oh,
Sorry.
So first, I think the core of the answer is we need sentencing reform. I've had a lot of conversations with prosecutors. We can work with the prosecutor community to have much better sentences. What happened in the 1980s when I was a kid between college and getting my MBA at Wharton, I worked on Capitol Hill, and you saw all these guys trying to prove how tough they were, saying they were tough on crime with all these tough sentences that we're now paying the price for, that are not reducing crime, that in fact are increasing crime, that are costing our public budget money. So we need robust sentencing reform, and not just the autocratic move on the part of the governor to commute sentences, but you will have in Lee Jackson, the first African-American First Lady, and she comes home and she sits with me and talks about going out to dinner with a woman who has 2 sons in jail on life sentences. Their lives have been thrown away, but a grandson who after 1 year in prison is on his way to Howard University. These are issues we care about in my family. We will address them.
Thank you. Secretary McGinty.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, specifically with respect to pardons, Dan, anytime when there is data like you have cited and that you've done a brilliant job of bringing forward, it's incumbent upon a governor to look at that data and make sure you're acting to see why would there be such a dramatic change. And yes, I would step up and take a very critical look at that and see why it is that the pardon has not been a part of this whole equation as it had previously been.
Thank you. Congresswoman.
Yeah, and we've discussed this as well, and what I can say is that there is a process for this. There's a board that looks at it, led by the lieutenant governor, and in fact, I would take seriously their recommendations and lean on them to make sure those appointments are people who actually would not turn a blind eye to the opportunity that would help some people who deserve to be able to be given a second chance to be able to get out of jail. But this is a responsibility of the governor. It's a tough one. It's not an easy decision to make, and I think it has to be taken very, very seriously. But to make sure that there are people who might have that opportunity, who have shown that they can function in a civil society, to be able to look at that data and make a decision.
Great, thank you.